Hey everybody, I am back. For my returning viewers, I am so sorry I took a bit of a hiatus there because YouTube is exhausting. For those of you that are joining me for the first time, welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the Big Island of Hawaii. I was just there in April and have lots of good new tips for you and would like to share that, especially if this is going to be your first time to the Big Island, planning that first trip, kind of knowing what you want to see and do and the best strategy for doing it. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and dive in. So like I said, we just got back from a trip in April and it was absolutely beautiful. The thing about the Big Island, and probably the biggest thing you need to decide, is how much time you want to spend and what side of the island you want to spend it on. As you may already know, if you're looking into a trip to the Big Island, there's two primary areas, although the island is much more than these two areas. But basically you have the Hilo side, which is going to be more of your rainforest, lots of hikes, the volcanoes, stargazing, things of that nature. That is all going to be on the Hilo side. And then on the Kona side, that's more of your traditional resort area. It's more arid, more desert-like and hot, but it is still beautiful and gorgeous. But on that side of the island is where you're going to do more water sports. You have some desert activities you could do. Some of the coffee plantations are kind of in between and around, horseback riding, things of that nature. So the side of the island that you choose to primarily stay in is going to be the area that you want to, it has the most that you want to experience. So if you want to experience the rainforest, botanical gardens and things, stay in Hilo. If you want to experience more of an arid resort like ocean water sports, then you want to stay in Kona. So here's the thing. A lot of people make the mistake of spending too little time in the Big Island. I just overheard somebody recently saying that they were planning a trip to Hawaii and they were spending the bulk of their time in Maui and just a few days in the Big Island. Unfortunately, that is not enough time to see the Big Island. You might be able to see one of the spots. You might be able to explore Kona kind of with a few days, maybe a little, or Hilo. But really, to really maximize your time on the Big Island, I want to encourage you to take as much time as you are able to for your budget and your time that you have available. Because the more time you have, the more you can see and enjoy about the Big Island. And so that is the first factor I want to talk about is just planning your time there. If you have to stay 4 days or less, I suggest choosing one side of the island or the other, and I'll talk about the differences here shortly, but choose one side and then just stay there, and then perhaps maybe take an excursion to the other side to see something. But like I said, if it's a 4-hour trip back and forth, you really are only going to want to take one day to do that. You're not going to want to do that day after day. If you're staying 5 days or more, I encourage you to stay on both sides. So start with the side that maybe, what am I trying to say? The one, your second choice, let's put it that way. Your second choice, start there, stay there for a few days, and then go over to your first choice for the remainder of your vacation. That way you can stay and explore that area. You're not worried about 4 hours of driving or road trips. You can explore everything there is to see in one spot, and then move over to the other side of the island and explore everything there is to see in the other spot. That would be the ideal and my biggest recommendation for your first time to the Big Island is have enough time that you can stay a few days in each spot. Now, choosing the spot, let me explore some of the differences. Like I was saying in the beginning, Hilo is going to be more of a rainforest type of it's not type of, it is a rainforest. It's going to have more rain, but don't let that stop you because it's still warm. And so the rain never bothered us when we were there. However, on the Hilo side of the island, you have just amazing hikes, gorgeous waterfalls. They have most of the black sand and some green sand beaches. So you're seeing a little bit different aspect of the beaches. It's not the same resort style beaches that you would see on the Kona side, but they're still gorgeous to see with the different sand varieties in them. You also have the Hilo Farmers Market, which is a huge farmers market. On the Hilo side is also where most of the residents live. So you're seeing just a different vibe all the way around. It's more the local vibe. It's more laid back. It's not so resort-like and touristy-like, if that's a word. It feels more authentic. And if you're looking for that beautiful tropical environment, the Hilo side is where you're going to find that. Also on the Hilo side, that's closest to the Volcano National Park. So if you do plan to explore the volcano, that is the side you want to be on. I highly recommend that you spend more than a day at the volcano, and I'll talk about that here shortly. You're closer to Mauna Kea if you want to go stargazing. They leave from Hilo a little closer. The Kona trip is about 2 hours. Hilo is a little closer, so it's a shorter trip if you're going stargazing. So Hilo, I'm hoping I'm expressing this correctly. That's kind of the style and vibe. And if those are the type of things you want to do and explore, highly recommend the Hilo side. Now, conversely, Kona side, that is going to be more your typical resort touristy area. It's, like I said, more arid, more dry and hot. The cool thing about the Big Island is that it has, I think it's 5 out of the 7 climates in the entire world. So within the Big Island, you could see so many different atmospheres. It seemed like everywhere we went and when we were driving, we kept going from one climate and atmosphere to something totally different and completely opposite. And so it's just fascinating everywhere you go that everything can be so different on one small island. It's really amazing. So on the Kona side, it is more desert-like and more arid. That is where you're going to have more of the resort style beaches where you can go in the white sand, and unbelievably gorgeous beaches, by the way. And the water is amazing. It's always warm and it's like bath water almost. But that's also where you're going to go surfing, snorkeling, paddleboarding, scuba diving. All of those things are going to be done on the Kona side of the island. It also has the most tourist areas and things to do, nightlife if you want to have some. Go out at night. Everything closes pretty early, but if you're out on a weekend, you're going to find more restaurants and things that are going to be open a little bit later on the Kona side. Some in Hilo, but mostly on the Kona side. The Kona side, and I don't mean just in Kona, the areas surrounding that, is going to be an entirely different experience, entirely different vacation than the Hilo side. So you just need to decide which side of the island sounds more like the style of vacation that you're looking for, and then plan your trip around that. If you can still, regardless of if Kona is your ideal, I still encourage you to stay in Hilo as well, or near Hilo, and vice versa. Like, don't ignore one just because you think one style is better than the other. I really encourage you to see both because they are both amazing. So that's my first tip, is planning your trip, deciding how long you're going to stay and in what areas you're going to stay in. Tip number 2 is, if you are staying longer, I do encourage you to get a rental car if it's in your budget to do so. And you don't have to stick to only your typical rental car places like Avis and Enterprise and things like that. I also encourage you to take a look at Turo. And if you've never heard of Turo before, it is like an Airbnb for rental cars. So you rent it from a personal owner, and then they arrange to deliver the car for you. So if you're coming into the airport, they can usually arrange to have the car waiting for you at the airport when you arrive. And then they just give you, same thing with Airbnb, they give you the instructions for how to get into the car, and then be able, and when you're going to return it, where you return it to and stuff. But you can also have them deliver it to other places. There's usually a surcharge, but you can have them deliver the car to you at any time. So even if you only want the car for a day, you might be able to have them deliver it to your hotel, and then you can have it for the day, and then they'll come pick it up when it's over. It's a great way to have a broader options of car types available. So if you're wanting like a cool Jeep or convertible or some kind of cool sports car, something like that, all the way down to your economy cars, they have a wide range available, and it's just more customizable, just like an Airbnb is. It's just a little bit more honing in on what it is that you're going to want. So I encourage you to take a look at Turo and rent a car. Now, if you are staying the longer time span, highly recommend you have a car, because that way you can drive back and forth between the Hilo and the Kona sides, if you're staying in both. If you are only staying 4 days or less, you could get by without a car, because most likely if you're going places, you can either Uber or you're taking an excursion. But I still highly recommend a car if you have it in your budget, because it is so gorgeous to drive around the coast and to explore and see. I would highly encourage at least a little bit of that, even though you can't go around the whole island. I mean, you can, but it would take hours. But at least exploring the side of the island that you are on, a car comes in super handy for that. All right, now if you're coming to the island and you're staying in an Airbnb, one of the things you'll need to know is the groceries. And even if you're staying in a hotel, especially if you're staying a long time, you may not want to eat out every single meal. So one of the things that people mention when you're going to the Big Island is that groceries are expensive. Unless you happen to be from New York or California or one of the coasts where groceries are expensive anyway, it's going to be far more expensive in Hawaii because they have to ship everything to the island. So it just is a little bit more pricey. So one of the recommendations somebody had for me was to bring some of your favorite grocery items in your luggage. Now, that's a great idea, but you have to know when you arrive in Hawaii, you will go through a somewhat customs. They want to make sure you're not bringing any agriculture into the island that might disturb the ecosystem of the island. And so you can't bring all your produce and everything like that. So be cautious of what you decide to pack in your bags. By all means, you can bring some of your groceries and help cut down on those costs. Also, if you are renting an Airbnb, I highly recommend you fly in and out of Kona, or at least into Kona, because in Kona you have Costco, Target, a bunch of different grocery stores and things. So you can always hit those areas, stock up on all your groceries, and then head to your Airbnb or hotel. So it's the perfect kind of right by the airport. You can pass through them, get what you need, and then move on to where you're staying. The next quick tip is that cell coverage, Wi-Fi is usually pretty much available everywhere on the island. Everywhere we were, it was not a problem except for some short areas on Saddle Road. Now, Saddle Road is the road that comes from Kona to Hilo. It cuts over the cross of the mountain. It used to be a dangerous road, but it's no longer that. Though it is kind of a desolate road, so going at night, just be extra cautious. It does narrow to 2 lanes in some parts, but for the most part, it's a nice, wide, broad road now, and it was no problem for us to drive across. And so it cuts the time down to just about 2 hours when you're going from Kona to Hilo. So there was just a small period of time when I didn't have cell coverage there, but for the most part, you're gonna have coverage most other places on the island, except for maybe at the top of Mauna Kea perhaps, but otherwise you should be good. If you are staying in the Hilo side, I already mentioned the rain. So you might want to pack a light rain cover or something like that with you if you're going to be doing some hikes on the Hilo side. Also mosquitoes, because it is a rainforest, so you will have mosquitoes, so you'll want to maybe have some bug repellent or whatever you use if you are in an area that has a lot of mosquitoes. Okay, so those are kind of the top tips of different things to consider when you're planning a trip to the Big Island. Now I want to cover some of the top things to do that we explored when we were there in April, and give you some ideas of what you can do on each side. But also I have another video that I'm going to link here somewhere. I'm going to link it somewhere that goes over some of the ideas of things to do that nobody else is talking about. Some of those unique things. I'm not talking about the volcano or stargazing on Mauna Kea or snorkeling. It's going to be some of the offshoot things that are fun to do, and that you can find all of those details in that video. But for now, let's go ahead and cover some of the top things that we did when we were on our vacation this spring. So we started on the Hilo side, and on the Hilo side, one of the biggest attractions is the volcano. I cannot recommend enough going to the volcano. It is absolutely amazing. And one of the hikes that we did, and the name is escaping me, so I will add it to the screen when I go through editing, but it is an amazing hike where you hike through a little bit of the rim of the volcano, and you actually go down and hike across a lava field. It is extraordinary. Now, it is a little bit of an intermediate hike because when you come back out of the lava field, it is pretty steep, and so there's a lot of switchbacks, and it's 15 minutes of uphill. But if you don't mind that and everything's good, I highly encourage that hike as well. Now, that is by far not the only hike. Around the Volcanoes National Park, you have many, many, many hikes of all different ranges, from beginner all the way up to advanced hikes. In addition, you have the Volcano National Park, just the Welcome Center that has information about the volcano, and a gift shop and an art house. If you don't want to do hikes, from the Welcome Center, you can walk to see the steam, where the steam is rising from the volcano. And then there's also Volcano House is a hotel, and they have amazing food. So if you're there and it's lunchtime or dinner time, or breakfast, I highly recommend eating at that hotel. It has windows overlooking the primary crater of the volcano. So as you're eating, you can see the steam rising from the volcano. If it's active at that time and there's lava flowing, in the daytime, I don't know that you'll be able to see it, but at night you would be able to see the glow. So those are some of the items to do. And then if the volcano is erupting, I highly recommend going at night so you can see the glow. It does get really busy though, so you want to plan either just know it's going to be busy and it's going to take some time, or try to go a little bit later at night when the crowds have passed, and you should be able to get a little bit more unobstructed view of the lava flow. When we were there, it was not erupting. Sadly, we missed it by, I think, like 4 days. It had stopped. And then after we left, of course, it erupted again. And so we missed the opportunity. But if you're there and you're seeing the volcano, don't miss seeing a live eruption, because that is just something, I mean, once in a lifetime that you might be able to see. Also on the Hilo side, I mentioned already, is the Mauna Kea stargazing. Now, this is something that, although technically you could drive up to the top and be able to see from the summit, and it's highly recommended you go at sunset to be able to look out over the entire islands and the water and everything else. And then that's the summit, and then a little bit lower than the summit is going to be an observation center, and that's where you're going to actually do the actual stargazing. Technically, you can drive up to the top. However, it is very treacherous. They even have rangers stopping you on your way up to make sure your car can handle getting up, which is dirt roads as you get higher towards the summit. And if you're renting a car, the car rental places aren't going to let you, most of them are not going to give you authority to drive up that road. So if you do it anyway and you get in an accident or something happens, you won't be covered and you'll be out of pocket for any expenses. So even though technically you could do it if you had the right car, it's usually not recommended if you're renting a car, and instead do an excursion. Most of the excursions, I think I mentioned already, they leave out of Hilo. It's a lot closer. I think it's a 30-minute drive versus if you're leaving from Kona, it's a 2-hour drive. So highly recommended to go ahead and do, if you're on the Hilo side, see Mauna Kea and go stargazing from that side of the island. The other thing that was absolutely gorgeous was the Hawaii Tropical Botanical Garden. Man, that's a mouthful. This is just outside of Hilo, just kind of west of Hilo. It does cost about $30 for adults to go. I know that's a lot, but it is absolutely worth it. This botanical garden is amazingly gorgeous. Everywhere I turned, there was something just jaw-dropping. And it wasn't just local Hawaiian flora and fauna. They had actually brought in flora and fauna from all different countries. So you might see giant banyan trees from Africa and orchids and everything else under the sun. And they have placards to let you know where each tree and flower comes from. And then as you walk down into it, it opens up into the ocean, and it's just an incredible, incredible experience. So if you like gardens, if you like botanical gardens and nature and exploring, I highly recommend the Hawaii Tropical Botanical Garden. In addition to that, there are tons of hikes, and all of the best waterfalls are going to be on the Hilo side. Just more than I can express, but usually when you're researching the Big Island, these are, when you see waterfall hikes, it's usually going to be on this side of the island. So when you're over there, you really want to take advantage of those if you're a big hiker. And even if you're not, if you just want to see a waterfall, there's some amazing things to be seen. This is also where you're going to see most of the black sand and green sand beaches. They're going to be on this Hilo side. So when you're on Kona, you can see the white sand, but on the Hilo side, that is where, if you ever wanted to go to a black sand or green sand beach, that is the time to do it, is on this side of the island. Now, these beaches are not the resort style, big layout in the sun kind of beaches. They're usually a lot more shallow, a little smaller, but you get to see some just extraordinary beaches because of the beauty of the sand against the green of the rainforest around you and the blue of the water. It's just, it's magnificent. My last thing I want to talk about with Hilo is if you are driving and do have a car, I highly recommend don't only take the saddle road back and forth. If you can, at least once, leave out of the, I guess it would be the east and north side of the island and drive around the coast up to Kona. That drive is so extraordinary. I saw so many things. I was just in awe most of the drive. It's a little bit longer, but it is absolutely worth it to see just some amazing, amazing things. All right, now popping over to the Kona side. So Kona side is also where it's gonna have most of the big resorts. You know, the Hilton Grand Waikoloa and Waimea, and all of the big resorts are gonna be on the Kona side. So over there, that is where you wanna spend spend most of your time if you are a water sport lover, if you want to go surfing, snorkeling. If you do want to go snorkeling, highly recommend Captain Cook's Monument. We went snorkeling in a few different places. We did a private, I think it was just 6 people max snorkeling tour, which highly recommend if you can get small groups. It's far better than a massive 100 people, because there are boats with 100 people on them going snorkeling. So we did a small tour, and most of the places we went was fine snorkeling, like it was good snorkeling. But when we got to Captain Cook, it was just another level. It was a whole new world. I felt like I was snorkeling in an aquarium. It was gorgeous, clear water, colors I don't think I've ever seen anywhere in my life. The water was warm. It was just phenomenal. So if you are a snorkeler or perhaps a scuba diver, although the snorkel part is far more shallow than you're going to scuba dive, I highly recommend going to Captain Cook. Also on the Kona side, that is where you're going to find those night manta ray dives. Now, this is something, again, a once in a lifetime type of thing to do, and highly recommended when you go to the Big Island. There's 2 locations you can go out of. I highly recommend you go to the more northern location that's near the Outrigger Resort, because it's the Outrigger that everybody's going to view the manta rays. So it's like a 5-minute boat versus, I think, a 30-minute or longer. So if you're snorkeling, I highly recommend going out of the more northern by the Outrigger. If you're scuba diving, you want to go out of the southern side, because that's going to be a better route for scuba divers to be able to see it from a different perspective. But the manta ray dive, I don't have any video because it was a very choppy night and I was experiencing a little bit of seasickness, and so I just don't have the video. But if you watch videos from anybody else, almost everybody recommends the manta ray, and there's a reason for that, and I highly recommend it as well. It's pretty cool. You basically go out, you hold on to floats, and you have your snorkel stuff on, and you just look down, and the manta rays are attracted to the light. And so they come in and swoop all around you. They don't hurt you, they don't sting you. There's nothing dangerous about it. It's a really cool thing to see. This side of the island is also where you're gonna see a lot of the coffee plantations. If you're a coffee lover, that is a great thing to do. Also, they're gonna have the horseback riding. They're gonna have petroglyphs. They're gonna have so many other things that are available on the Kona side of the island. So it really is magnificent. And then one of the other things that's a not miss when you're on the island is a farmer's market, whether that is in Hilo. There's a ton in Hilo and Poa and kind of a bunch of places up there. Also in Kona, they're going to have a few in Waimea and a few different places on the Kona side as well. Farmers markets are great to get some nice, fresh local produce. They usually have food trucks. They usually have music. It's a whole event, and so it's a lot of fun. And that's pretty much it. I think I've talked your ear off enough, but when planning that first trip to the Big Island, there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of things to do. And again, the biggest tip is if you can, stay as long as you can and stay on both sides of the island so you can really experience everything the Big Island has to offer. And again, that video that I had made that talks about the less talked about things to do, things that nobody else is talking about that you can do in the Big Island, you can take a look at that here. And otherwise, I want to thank you for stopping by, and I will see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.